Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this morning for our session on pre-planning for the LGBTQ plus community, getting your affairs in order, starting to think about your values and priorities, why it's important to get those on paper, and how to make sure your wishes and the things that you want known about yourself and who you want making medical decisions for you are able to be implemented for you in the event that something happens. So quickly about us, my name is Jamie. You can use she or they pronouns for me. I'm a death doula. I am a community end of life and grief educator, and I also do grief support through Queer Grief Club, which is an online space for both support groups for the queer community, but also advocacy and education around grief and death, and our queer lens of that and how we kind of interact with that as queer people, and how we move through that. And then I want to introduce you to Jet, who's going to also talk about Care Partners Hospice, who is amazing and has secured a grant to provide all of the funding for these programs so that they can be free for you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So many of you joined today. It's really exciting to see this program growing over the years. Yeah, we were fortunate actually to get a gift, really, a donation to be able to do an LGBTQ end of life grief and bereavement program through Care Partners Hospice and Palliative Care, which is in Portland, Beaverton area. We're a nonprofit. We're very tiny. So it feels really wonderful to be able to offer these educational insights and support for our community. I'm a medical social worker. I'm in the LGBTQ community and just wanted to bring those passions together and really love Jamie's work. So we're happy to have her here to share her wisdom and information today. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to be running the tech mostly. So if you have any issue, you can private message me. Yeah. And then looking forward to hearing from you all at the end as well.
Great. So let's get into it because we have lots to cover, and I'm sure there will be lots of questions. Hmm. So just a disclaimer for everyone, advanced care planning, facilitation, and discussions here. Um, these are not professional medical advice, diagnosis, they're not treatment. It's also not legal advice. So just know that everything here is for general education purposes. This is for your information. And we are not giving any legal advice, but there are lots of ways that you can take these documents and things work with legal people, and we will tell you ways to make things legal using witnesses. Um, so why pre-planning? I'm keep getting Okay, sorry, I kept getting messages saying that I want to record to the computer. Okay, so why pre-planning? We want to ensure respect and dignity for our community. We know that so often we face discrimination, lack of understanding in healthcare settings. And so we want to make sure that we are taken care of in the way that we deserve to be taken care of, that we are choosing the places we want to be taken care of, and that we are also setting the precedent for taking care of our bodies and what that means. Pre-planning also helps with legal protections. So without proper planning, queer folks might encounter things like, um, difficulties in decision making for medical care. So maybe you have people who don't have your best interest are going to be making your medical decisions or fighting with someone who does have your best interest about making medical decisions. There might be difficulties or a lot of complications around finances or inheritance um, or a will. So it's really important that we are able to protect ourselves, and there are ways that we can do that through paperwork, such as wills, advance directives, power of attorney, etc. Pre-planning also helps address our unique needs as a community. we oftentimes have a lot of specific healthcare needs um, and things that we want to have affirmed for us that are related to our identities or to our communities. So things such as gender affirming care or mental health support or chosen family considerations, or even thinking about gender presentation and the ways that we want to still be recognized, even if we aren't conscious or we aren't able to share that with someone. We also want to make sure that our family and the relationships that are in our lives and that make sense to us and that are loving and supportive, that they are the ones who are making our decisions, that they are the ones who are recognized as such, and that they are the ones who are able to get comfort and support. So without pre-planning, oftentimes chosen family is left out of the equation, and we're left with just what the state decides is next of kin. We also do pre-planning to emotionally prepare ourselves. End of life care planning is no one really gets excited about it. But it does help us start to find where our growth edges are. They also like start to realize where our concerns and fears are. Maybe there's unresolved anxiety. Maybe there's something that you have very clear in your mind, but um, you have a friend or a chosen family member that is struggling to understand why you would choose that. This can really open up a lot of beautiful dialogue and also allow ourselves to be more emotionally prepared for what things might come up around um, caring for us, if something happens to us. We also want to pre-plan for advocacy and education. This allows us to also go into healthcare settings and advocate for our rights. We get to educate healthcare providers. My favorite thing as a death doula is to walk in with someone's advanced care directive and say, "Hey, doctor, I want you to know in this advanced care directive, and also everyone here who's important is using these pronouns for this person. And they've also stated that, like, this is very important and they do not want this." And we can really like advocate for people in that way and educate any healthcare providers or care people or people who are coming into that space about how to show up for you. It also helps us support or create support networks. Um, and so when we're thinking about end of life care and we're thinking about planning for maybe something happening to us or an illness or just needing more support and care, we can start thinking about that ahead of time, and that can allow us to coordinate different networks to communicate preferences on what that might look like. Like, I want a whole team of queer caregivers if possible, or I want to work with this hospice if I ever go into hospice because this is what's important to me, or I would like to make sure that someone's taking care of my dogs. So there's lots of ways that you can start to think about like the support networks and how to bring in more community care, both for yourself and the people around you. And then, of course, like my favorite reason for pre-planning is really just empowerment and reminding ourselves of our autonomy. I think when we go through life, oftentimes everyone's telling us, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't be this way, we don't believe you. But when we get to engage in these end of life care planning conversations and we get to write down our preferences on paper, it really helps us feel like we have some control over our healthcare decisions or our finances. We might not be able to control everything, but we can make sure that your bio family who can't accept your transition is not making medical decisions for you. Or we can make sure that your finances or the things that are really important to you go to the people that you want them to go to. So this really just helps us assert our autonomy and our agency and help shape our end of life experience, ideally. So the first piece of paperwork that I want to talk about that I feel like is one of the most important things that we can fill out is an advance directive. This is what allows you to take control of your healthcare decisions. An advance directive is a legal document that specifies your healthcare preferences if you are unable to communicate them. So this happens when someone's in an accident or they've had a stroke and are no longer conscious, or any other kind of way in which you are unable to communicate your preferences um, around healthcare. We will defer to an advance directive to see if you have filled out what you would like or what you would not like. If that hasn't been filled out, then they are going to ask the people who are closest to you to figure out what they think you might want. And so that can be a really confusing and hard and painful place for people. And it can also be a really terrible power to give someone who doesn't really deserve it or who shouldn't be making medical decisions for you. So, an advance directive ensures that your values, your preferences, your beliefs guide the medical care that you receive.
Brag, brag that bar.
During critical moments where you might be incapacitated or seriously ill or at the end of your life. And in an advanced care directive, you can specify important decisions with things like, would you want life-sustaining treatment, like an intubation or a feeding tube, or even what circumstances you would want those. So maybe if there is hope that I will recover and I will only need to be on an intubation thing for a certain amount of time, then yes, I would like that. But if there is there's no path of me coming back from this. And doctors are saying I would live the rest of my life on an intubation and feeding tubes. Then for me, I would choose something different. So you can start to really get into the circumstances and a little bit of the nuance. Um, for advanced care directives and talk about whether you would want comfort care or aggressive interventions and when and why you might want those. You can also, and this is, I think, maybe one of the most important parts of a healthcare advanced directive is that you can appoint a trusted person, which is oftentimes called a healthcare proxy, to make decisions for you on your behalf if you're unable to do so. So, advanced directives, you might hear of advanced directives for people who are older adults, who are seniors, or who are seriously ill, but anyone over the age of 18 can benefit from one. And we know that accidents, sudden health crises can happen at any time. I'm even thinking about just with COVID being prevalent in our world and how multisystemic it is and how it causes strokes and lots of different organ failures in its most serious, that can be a time when advanced directives can be very, very helpful. People also might want to fill them out if they have a chronic illness, if they have a serious illness. We know that those things can change. Of course, elderly individuals, but oftentimes if you're going in for a major surgery or medical procedures, they might ask you if you have an advance directive. Why? Because, anything could go wrong potentially. When we're undergoing major surgery or we're having a medical procedure. And so they want to know the guiding principles for how to care for you. If you have a family history of severe health conditions, I know I personally have a long family history that I take to the doctors with me every time. And so to me, it feels important to fill out an advance directive so that if anything happens to me, because I know that someday it probably will, I want to make sure that I am protected, that the people who I love are taking care of me, and that doctors aren't doing any unnecessary treatment that I don't want. We also want advanced care directives for parents of young children, for people in high risk occupations, for anyone who wants to express their medical preferences. And for me, I feel like it's very important to stress that queer people should really have advanced directives because we want to make sure that our healthcare proxies are who we want them to be. I have seen way too many times that a queer person gets in an accident or has something happen, and suddenly their bio family is coming in and able to dismiss all of the partner's wishes and desires for care and completely change everything, and they have the legal right to do that. So this is really, again, a way to protect ourselves, a way to plan for the future. And ideally, we're planning this and then we're not thinking about it too much until we're just doing our life review or making sure that we still feel aligned with our choices. So an advanced care directive contains two separate things, a living will and a durable power of attorney for healthcare. So this gets confusing for me personally because I know like we have the wills, right, that happen around your um, the stuff that you have around your inheritance or a trust or any of these assets, right? But a living will is part of an advanced care directive, which is the legal document where you can state how you want to be treated if you can't make medical decisions about your care. Right. So this is again what we're talking about, what medical treatments you would and would not want, under which circumstances, and then a little bit more about just your beliefs, the things that shape your world, how you would want to be interacted with. An advanced care directive can really go in so many different directions, and you can add in addendums to make it really unique to you. And then this durable power of attorney for healthcare is where you name your healthcare proxy. You name this person to make the medical decisions for you. They have to also accept, and they have to know your values and your wishes so that they can be the person who takes over your medical care if something happens to you. And they have the blueprint, which is your advanced care directive, on how to kind of direct that care. So, reasons why you should fill out your advanced care directive. I think I've already given some good ones, but it ensures your wishes are known and followed, ideally. It provides clarity for your loved ones. I see a lot of people when they are trying to figure out what kind of decision to make for their loved one. Do we take them off the intubation tube? Do we not? Do we do a feeding tube? What kind of care would they want? Do they want to come home and die at home? Do we want to keep them in the hospital? This provides clarity for your loved ones. It provides your voice to say, this is what I would want, or this is what I think I would want. And that allows people to make more informed decisions and helps alleviate a lot of guilt and worry for the people who are having to make these decisions. It ideally helps avoid conflicts or can at least like unveil the conflicts that might happen so that you can start to figure out where you need to get more support. It improves communication with healthcare providers. Healthcare providers are always really surprised when young people fill out advanced care directives, and I think that it's really cool that we continue to do that and that we continue to take our health and our lives in our hands. I think it's really important to show healthcare providers that we are informed and that we demand care that is tailored to us, and that we're not going to just kind of let the state decide who makes decisions for us. This helps emergency situations. It prevents unnecessary, unwanted treatments. It's legal protection. It reflects your personal and cultural values. There's just so many reasons to fill this out, way more reasons than there is to not. And so when we're thinking about assigning a healthcare representative, which is the really such an important part of the advanced care directive, you want to think about is this person willing to accept the role, right? So you can't choose a healthcare representative who's not willing to do it because they have to sign the piece of paper saying they are willing. This person willing to talk to me about my goals, my values, my preferences? If they can't have a conversation with you, is that the right person? Maybe do you have someone else that is a co-healthcare representative so they don't have to do it alone? Will they follow your decisions, even if they disagree with them? So, if you have someone who you want to be your healthcare representative, but they might not agree with a DNR, will they still follow that decision or would they override it? Um, and are they able to make decisions in difficult situations? Are they someone who shows up and feels like they can really handle that moment? Or are they someone who really struggles in difficult situations, in stressful situations, and they might also need some more support that you can name in your advanced care directive as well? So there's a part in the form where they ask if you want to assign an alternate. And that's what I'm talking about when I say you might want to add kind of a co-representative. So you may feel, and I've seen this with folks who, they want their brother to make decisions for them. Their brother lives on the East Coast and they live here. They know that, like, though they want their brother to make the decisions for them, that they also want to have a healthcare representative that is local, that is someone who can be there immediately if something happens, and that could also work with the brother or whoever so they could come to decisions together and work as a team. I've even had people who have filled out advanced care directives with me, like we have created and written down the whole care team. This is the official healthcare proxy, and this is the healthcare team of people that I want to make all the decisions together as a collective. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but you can assign an alternate, you can just have one healthcare proxy, um, and an alternate can be helpful if you have geographic distance, if there's mental or physical health stuff that you worry about, if you just want to provide them with extra support, if unpredictable circumstances happen and something happens to your healthcare proxy, it's helpful to have an alternative. So it's one thing to find your healthcare representative, that person that you really want to make your decisions, but also, do you want to have an alternate? Do you want to have someone as kind of backup? So what happens when we don't have advanced care directives? If we don't have advanced care directives, basically, when we go into a hospital, they are going to make decisions that they think are the best for us. And then they will also ask decision makers if you can't speak for yourself based on the next of kin. And that typically defaults to spouse, parents, or adult children, because we know that the state really values kind of those traditional like nuclear family roles, right? And so for us, for queer people, if you have a partner and you're not married, or even thinking now about, as marriage equality continues to be up in the air, if we are if we are not able to have our partner be a spouse or be a legal next of kin, we might want to make them our healthcare proxy as a backup. That's something that I have done, is making my wife my healthcare proxy as well, even though legally she is. But if someone ever said, oh, legally you are not married, then they still could be my healthcare proxy. If someone doesn't have family members and there's no friends or established kinship, um, then oftentimes the state defaults to a physician or someone appointed by the state to make medical decisions. And I will tell you what, I do not ever want someone appointed by the state to make medical decisions for me. So I would like to make sure that my healthcare proxy is filled out and that I have an alternate. that my family members are the people that I love know what my decisions are, and that it would never just be defaulted to someone who doesn't know who I am and who doesn't care. So how do you fill out an advanced care directive? Like, how can we do this immediately, right? There is a really great website called carriedinfo.org that has planning or advanced care directives and other planning forms by state. So you can find your state's advanced care directive there. You can also go to like your major hospital or your healthcare, your insurance probably has an advanced care directive, your doctor's office, the National Institute of Health. They are readily available, and you might see they might all look a little bit differently, but most of the time they're gonna have basically the same basic information, and some might have more room for more nuanced questions. Some might have just less space for that, but I love to include some additional paperwork for them to read. So when we're completing our advanced care directive, so we print it out, we start going through, and a lot of people get stuck at this part. We fill out our names, we fill out like our address and like that kind of stuff, and then we get to the questions that are, would you have life-sustaining treatment if you were unable to, wake up and recover, and you start going into the nitty-gritty. And so I like to tell people that you can talk with your doctor, you can talk with a death doula. I love working with people who are thinking about their advanced care directives because we're talking about all the different things that a lot of us are kind of scared to talk about, or that we might not feel comfortable talking about, or we might even just be confused on the answers or the questions that are on the piece of paper. So, I always encourage people to resource out if you are confused about any of the medical procedures or terms, if you want guidance or even just support, as you are filling this out. If you are When you're completed your form, the way to make it legal is to have it signed by two witnesses or to have it notarized. So you have to remember that the person that you name as your advance or as your healthcare representative is also going to have to sign and accept the role. So you are going to have to get signatures from your healthcare representative, from two witnesses, or from a notary. Once the form is completed and it's signed and it's either notarized or it's been witnessed, you make a copy of the form and then you obviously give a copy to your healthcare representative, but then you also give a copy to your healthcare providers and ask them to have it be added to your chart. You give it to your family, your friends, your community members, the people who are part of your inner circle, so that they know what your wishes are. And you keep the original copy in a safe place and make sure that someone other than you knows where it is, because it is easy to go into a doctor's office or a medical situation when we are in an emergency and for doctors to not look and see if you have an advanced care directive, or for them to be overlooked. But if you are the healthcare proxy, or your family or your friends or community knows that you have one, they are able to bring it in and say, "Hey, this is the advanced care directive and it's legally binding, and like here's what here's what we need you to do, and this is a legal document." So, other things you might want to add to your advanced care directive as we're thinking about turning this paperwork in, getting it to our doctors, making sure it has what we need in it. But how can we also make it really tailored to us? It's one thing to fill out an advanced directive, and they can be pretty simple to just check off which yes, no, yes, no. But then there are some open-ended questions about spiritual beliefs, about healthcare beliefs. But there's also an at the end section, there's just a kind of anything else you want us to know. And so to me, that that creates a really big opportunity for us to really share how we want to be cared for, and the other ways in which supporting us through an emergency or through the end of our life would be affirming and filled with what we want it to be. So this could be detailed information about even specific procedures or types of care that might not be on the form or that you know that you would like to receive. Any information or wishes around gender affirming care or how people should address you, your gender identity and expression. I have examples of these in a Instagram post that I need to add to this presentation. But there's really great wording for this about just how to address me when I'm um, in a hospital setting or I might not be awake. And here's how I would still like my gender presentation to an expression to be, even if I'm dying and you think that I don't know. Like it is still important to me that I remain who I am. You can add general statements and beliefs about the end of your life or death and dying, about, how you want people to show up for you, how you want people to offer care. You can talk about personal desires for your body disposition. So you can talk about cremation, burial, what you might want for your funeral, who you might want to be in charge of the disposition of your remains, which we are going to talk about because that's another really important piece of paperwork. You could talk about memorial plans or wishes. Um, I worked with someone once who, in their advanced care directive, talked about what they wanted done with their body after they died and kind of the ceremony and ritual that they would want. They don't want to be immediately taken to a funeral home. They want their animals to smell their body before they leave. They want people to be able to come by and say goodbye. So there's a lot of different ways that you can add this into your advanced care directive. Um, and then, of course, if you are concerned or if there is a safety issue, you can make a list of people who absolutely cannot make healthcare decisions for you, that you do not want in the room with you, that you do not want involved in any of your care. And so that is also an important thing that you can add kind of in the end part of your advanced care directive. This is maybe one of the hardest questions that I get because the answer is as complicated as our and unfair as our world is. Will filling out an advanced care directive guarantee my wishes and decisions? And the answer is I really, really hope so. An advanced care directive is legally recognized, but it's not legally binding, which means that your healthcare provider and proxy will do their best to respect your advanced care directive, but there may be situations in which they cannot follow your wishes like fully or to the T. So again, it's another reason why having these conversations are so important with and talking to your loved ones, your support circles, because sometimes, and especially in emergency medicine, like physicians oftentimes don't have time to even look and see if they have an advanced care directive until it's maybe at a critical point or they've already intubated and then they just realized, oh, this person didn't want intubation. So if you have an advanced care directive and you know that you want that to be the first and foremost thing, like it is important for your people to know and for your people to advocate for you. Um, there's ways that you can get little like wallet cards to put in your wallet that says I have an advanced care directive so that when if someone was identifying you in an emergency, they could see both your emergency contacts, but also that you have an advanced care directive and maybe who it's filed with. And then also just to remember that if a provider refuses to follow your advanced care directive for personal or policies reasons, then they have to let the healthcare proxy know. And you can then decide whether or not you want to change providers for that care if you're the healthcare proxy. So just to say that, like, if there is someone who is not following the Advanced Care Directive, it is absolutely your right to find other care and to push back on that because providers should be respecting the Advanced Care Directives. So things to consider. It's a living document. So that means that you can review it anytime you want. You can change it anytime you want. But when you do change it, that also just means you have to resend it to your doctor. You need to resend it to your healthcare providers. You need to resend it to your healthcare proxy. So you just have to go through the whole process again, which is totally fine. But sometimes people want to change their advanced care directives when major life things happen. Maybe they get a divorce and suddenly their partner is no longer who they would have as their healthcare proxy. So maybe they want to assign a chosen family member or a close friend. Um, there could be a death of a loved one, or you're moving out of state, or just any sort of significant change that might determine what how your values are shaped around healthcare. So just knowing that you can update, you can change your advanced directive at any time. And if you do so, just to make sure that you will destroy the old one and send the updated copies to all of your people and support circles so that they make sure that they have the right one, and are referring to the updated correct one. So other advanced care planning forms that I think are really important. So for this session, I really wanted people to walk away with knowing how to fill out an advanced care directive and why it's important. But there are also some other parts of planning that I think are really helpful for us to start thinking about as we are taking stock of just like what happens to me with when I die. How can I make this experience affirming to me, supportive for other people who might be caring for me? And what are the things that I need to start thinking about? So other forms that you might see or that might come into play are a do not resuscitate order. So a DNR. So that really is part of your medical chart that informs that if your heart stops beating, that you do not want CPR and you do not want other life support measures. Sometimes it's a uh, do not resuscitate, or sometimes it's an allow natural death, so an AND or a DNR. Um, but without a DNR, medical staff will attempt every effort to restore your breathing and your heart, which means they will go to extreme measures. So sometimes people who are older will fill out a DNR, or people who know that CPR can be really damaging or harmful for people will fill this out. Sometimes people who have already advanced illness will fill out a DNR. There's also POST and MOST forms. So these are kind of, again, more guidance about medical care in an emergency, but they also are usually for people who are at the end of life or critically ill. They're part of your advanced care directive. And so they are kind of helping you understand specific decisions that might be needed to be made on your behalf, but not necessarily in the big form of just kind of in case of emergency. This form is one that I feel like is a huge form that goes underrated and that a lot of people don't know about. And this is the primary agent of body disposition form. So the power to name a designated agent or someone, right, like a friend, a chosen family member, someone that you love, to take care of what happens to your body after you die is honored in all states. So when we're talking about disposition, this means the process of putting a person's body to rest and creating what would be their disposition of human remains. So that's cremation, that's body or burial, that's body donation, that's organ donation, that's human composting. This is where it gets tricky because this designated agent, right? This allows them to make all the decisions and have the power of filling out your death certificate, of doing the disposition of your remains, of having basically the power over your body after you die. When If you think that having your healthcare proxy would be that would transfer over in death, sadly, that's not the case because it is a healthcare proxy, and when you have died, you are not receiving healthcare anymore. So once you have died, your the rights to your body automatically go back to the next of kin. So you could have someone making your medical decisions for you all the way up until your time of death, and then your next of kin could come in and say, we're going to take over from here. Like we have the legal right to do what feels right to us with their body and to bury them or to memorialize them in the way that we want to. And so it's important to have this form because it again allows us to take um, our life, our death in our own hands to appoint the person that we want making those decisions for us, um, as so, and then to also make sure that the people that we don't want making decisions for us are not doing that. There's not necessarily a form that is for all states, or that there's kind of a regular for that form that most people have, but there is um it is legal or it is honored in all states. So if you have this piece of paper and you bring it to a funeral home or you share it with the hospital, it should be honored. So this allows people again to feel like they are taking control of the way that they want their body to be treated in death. Sometimes people think that they can get around this by putting it in their will, but oftentimes like it takes so long for wills to even be read. And so when we're talking about that interim time between right after death, but and then, into memorial celebrations or what we want to do with your body, it's really important to have the right person making those decisions. So even if you just draw up a short document and you date it and have it witnessed or notarized, that can be a really powerful piece of paper and a document to help make sure your wishes are affirmed and that they are carried out. There are forms that you can find online that kind of have this all written out and you can just fill in, but you're also welcome to just drop your own short document and say, this is what I want for my body. This is what I would like for um my funeral or for memorial, and this is who the person is that I want in charge of all of that, and I grant them this. And getting that notarized or signed by witnesses can be really helpful. So this is what I just wanted to share. This is the kind of default next of kin. So we're always the first person that someone is going to call is the spouse, a son or daughter that has to be, or child, obviously, that has to be 18 years or older, either parent, a sibling, a guardian, and then we finally get down here to like a person in the next degree, so like a friend or a chosen person. So you really have to go through a lot of biofamily to get to someone who might want to make medical decisions for you if you don't want your biofamily doing that, or you don't want them making decisions about your body after death. So again, it's really important that um, you have the right person making those decisions for you, and that if you don't want any of these people to make decisions about your body when you die, that naming a primary agent of body disposition is very important. So this is a form that I looked up that was easy to find. This is, and I will send these slides out too, but this is a link. So it just talks more about assigning an agent to control your disposition and and how you can make sure that it is honored in your state. So other planning things that you can think about, legal documents and directives, right? So you can create a will. I think it's helpful for people to create wills, especially if you have children that you are worried about custody, going to bio family or going to people that you wouldn't want to go to in the event of your death. Wills need to be drafted up and created by lawyers, but I'm hoping to create a resource page of just low cost, low barrier legal services so people can start to create or update wills and things, and people that are queer competent. Um, Obviously, preparing an advanced care directive, we talked about that, assigning a healthcare proxy, and you can have a power of attorney for your financial affairs if you are ever worried about finances. If something happens to you, or you just want to make sure that your money goes to the right people. There's financial and insurance planning. You can review life insurance. You could plan for end of life expenses. So sometimes people set up a funeral or a burial expense fund. Sometimes they set aside funds in a designated account, or they have prepaid for things. You can organize your financial accounts, so listing all your bank accounts, any credit cards, loans, financial information, and knowing that someone trusted knows how to access these accounts is really helpful, because if you just have the accounts written down but no one knows how to access them, that becomes a harder thing. Update your beneficiaries. If you have a retirement account, if you have insurance policies, if you have assets, make sure the beneficiaries on those are who you want them to be. Digital and personal information is really important to think about when planning for the end of your life, or just, preparing for the for an emergency or the inevitable. So organizing our digital accounts, which like to me sounds like a nightmare, but something we all need to do, right? Which is creating a list of all of our digital accounts, all of our passwords, um, and having a way that someone can access that with that your trusted person could log in or could get into your digital accounts and be able to close them down or do what you want with them. Right. You can even consider setting up like a digital legacy plan with someone. There's the option on Facebook, I think, to like make it so that your Facebook page can be managed by someone else in your death. So even just thinking about like, how do I want my social media to continue or not continue after I die? Do I want someone to have access to those things? Document personal information. So again, your social security number, passwords, membership subscriptions, just all of those things. I can't imagine I'm the only person here who has experienced a major loss in their life and the aftermath of trying to put together someone's life, trying to organize someone's life, trying to find the password or the um, information that you need for all the different terrible paperwork that you have to do. It is so helpful to have all of this stuff organized and in one place. Designating a person for pet care. I think we forget about this to add this into our advanced care planning, but for me, I know if something happens in an emergency, I need someone to come home and take care of my dogs and my cat. So designating someone to care for your animals in case of emergency, or someone to take care of your animals should you die, or what happens, like maybe someone you have designate someone to rehome your animal after you die if they're not able to take them. Um, Include any important pet care instructions. If something happened to me, I would need someone to know that one of my dogs is on a lot of mental health medication, and the other one like has some stuff that like she needs help with, with getting upstairs and all these different things. So I would want the next person to have as much as they could to be able to care for my animals in the way that I would want them to be cared for, and to also just create kind of like an easier landing for whoever is going to be going through all of my stuff and having to do um all the paperwork. Like, how can I make this a little bit easier and less of a treasure hunt for them? Creating a contact list for emergencies. So even just making the phone tree list of like, this is who I want to make sure they know if something happens to me. And then I want you guys to call these people. So just again, this is like planning for a softer landing for ourselves and for our people. This is a way to just also like ensure that we're planting care everywhere that we go, and that when we leave, we've also left a lot of care for the people behind. Funeral, burial, or memorial plans are great planning things, are great things to start thinking about. There is a death certificate worksheet that I think could be really helpful in a planning binder. When my mom was dying, she created what she called the red binder. And she would call them fire drills. And we would get together, me and my sisters, and she would show us everything that was in the red binder. And that was passwords, worksheets, all the things that I was just talking about, the things that we would need to take care of all of her stuff after she died. And one of those things was a death certificate worksheet. Because when you are filling out this death certificate worksheet, you want to make sure that you have the correct information, and or that the person that's going to be filling it out has the correct information. So, does your person know what your mom's maiden name is? Do they know your social security? Um, so you can have a death certificate worksheet. You can pre-fill all of it out, and have that ready so that they could just give that already to a funeral home and they would be able to transfer it to the death certificate. It's also, I feel like it's important for queer people to know that you can add your chosen name if you haven't legally changed your name. Um, to the as known as, because straight people are fine with other names for people like Richard and Dick, but really struggle with us choosing our own names. But thankfully on a death certificate there is a little box for your chosen name, or as also known as. So I always want people to know that. Please fill out your chosen name if your name has not been formally changed, because the name that matches your social security card is probably what will be on your death certificate. Also, times are becoming more and more hostile, so I just want people to know that though your gender marker might be the one that's on your driver's license, your name that matches your social security form might be on your death certificate, but you are also allowed to use your chosen name. And no matter what your death certificate says or what your gender marker says, that has no bearing on the way that you can be memorialized, on the way that you can have, a marker at your grave. No one is making sure that that's matching a death certificate. So just kind of in the same way that like your birth certificate with your assigned sex doesn't have any value on who you actually are. It is the same way with a death certificate. It's just unfortunate that it's legal paperwork. So another reason why filling out a death certificate worksheet can be helpful because it is a legal document, is a historical document. So you want to have it filled out as accurately as possible. You can select your funeral preferences. If you have preferences for burial, for cremation, memorial services, write them down. I mean, I think it would be so cool to experience, what someone else would want for their funeral. I love talking with my friends about what I would want for my funeral, and what I would want for my body. I hope to be composted. I hope my friends and family all have a little bit of me in their garden. And it's important for them to know that so that when I die, no one's going, oh, I think Jamie wanted to be buried, I think, and embalmed for sure. Um, if you are considering organ donation, though that is just a sticker that you can put on your driver's license, it's actually a bigger deal when it comes into practice, obviously. And so if you do wish to donate organs or tissues or do a whole body donation, you would want to make sure that your decision is documented in your advance care directive, and also you are registered with either your local organ donation registry, or if you are wanting to do whole body donation after your death, that you have talked to and pre-registered with a whole body donation program, because there are a lot of regulations and stipulations around who can and cannot donate their body. More planning considerations, legacy. This is kind of my favorite planning consideration because I like to think about, like, what is the legacy? What do I leave behind? You could create a living legacy. Consider, like, what if we left letters or videos or other personal messages for your loved ones to keep after you're gone? I like to try and, write as many notes to people, all for as many reasons as I can. And also, like, my dream is to actually create a longer letter that is included in my red binder, right? So that it's me talking to whoever is going to be um, taking care of my my plans and my body, and the grief. You can write down preferences for your stuff. If you have specific or special items that you want to leave for people, you can write down or create an inventory of what you would like to go, or who you would like things to go to. You can do this in a will too, of course, if you have like bigger assets or things that are important. But I'm like thinking about myself and I'm like, well, I would want all of my nibblings and my femmes to like have access to all my sequin clothes, and I would love for like my special jewelry to go to this person, and I would love for this thing to go to this person. And it can be a really sweet way for people to also like feel like, oh, they really wanted me to have this was meaningful to them. You can also write your own obituary, or you can write like a guideline or kind of like an outline for your obituary, um, because you get to draft it in a way that reflects your life and your values. You can include the key facts that are important to you, or the family members that are important to you, or the activism or the volunteering that was important to you. You can say where you would want people to donate in your honor. I think writing an obituary is kind of cool. I have dreams of having an obituary writing workshop or something, but I think, again, any way that we can help kind of shape our legacy and remind people that we care about our legacy, that it makes a difference, knowing that we are trusting our life and our death and our memory with people who can really honor it in the ways that it deserves to be. So planning for the future, whether that's for emergencies or end of life or anything in between, can bring peace of mind. It can help in communicate your wishes. It can create really beautiful conversations. It can ensure that your values are honored, and it can help create kind of more of a safety net and support network in difficult times. So when I'm thinking about talking to people about why to pre-plan, it's not that we're just like preparing and pre-planning for like the inevitable for our deaths, but we're also doing this gift of clarity, of guidance, of compassion, of again, like leaving a legacy of care to those who will carry out your wishes, those who will do these things for you and advocate for you and preserve your memory and your life the way that was so important to you. So I wanted to share these resources that are really helpful before we get into the question and answer. So, Compassion and Choices created a LGBTQ advanced planning toolkit, which is really amazing, and they partnered with Sage. And so there's a link here that has an advanced planning toolkit that is specifically geared towards our community, which I think is really amazing. The National Resource Center for LGBTQ Aging is a also great resource for end of life decisions, for paperwork stuff. And then there's a few other like end of life planning checklists. I mean, I love the name of this one, which is getyourshittogether.org. It's a really great, just like long list of things that you could do to prepare yourself. There's also advanced care directives for dementia, which I think are really important, especially if we have dementia in our family, if that runs in our family. Um, how can we make sure that we are being cared for if we have dementia? Because sometimes advanced care directives don't always make a lot of room and nuance for if you're unable to make medical decisions for yourself because of cognitive decision-making capabilities. These are other great organizations and helpful resources for getting conversation started, for just information on hospice, palliative care, the different forms like the PULSed. And then I really love these resources. And these are all people that I have met and work with. The Death Project Manager, their mortality workbook is amazing. It is actually a spiral bound workbook that you can go through and fill out. And that to me is kind of like my red binder. Like I have the mortality workbook, and then I add in pieces of paper and things to it, but it's very thorough and very awesome. The Death Deck is a really cool card game. They also have an end of life deck and a new dementia deck, which is a card game for helping kind of open up conversations and dialogues about death, about end of life. And now this new deck, which is about end of life care planning with dementia. And then It's Your Funeral is a really fun and funny and a little like light-hearted book, but also informational about how to plan your own funeral. And I think it was that to me was really helpful in starting to like get a little excited, which sounds weird, but just looking forward to planning my own funeral or to thinking about the ways in which I could have a hand in planning my own funeral. And then just wanted to say, stay in touch with us because we are going to continue to have these community end of life info sessions going through the end of this year. The next one that we have is about queer grief. It's about understanding kind of the different layers of what we carry, exploring our grief just kind of through our queer lens and looking at the ways in which our grief is not always just death related, but also can be disenfranchised and collective and so much more. So I would love to see you for the next session. We'll also be doing sessions about specifically about funeral planning, about end of life care, and about memorialization and ritual and ceremony at end of life. So we really, really love being in community with you and sharing our knowledge as much as we can. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so